Welcome to In the Green Chair, an interview series by Relay Education. In each episode, we sit down with a professional who's working the green economy to learn about their story.
Relay is a Canadian charity that delivers renewable energy and environmental education programs with the goal of creating change for a greener future and fostering the next generation of green leaders.
Throughout the series, you'll hear from professionals across a wide range of fields and sectors who all work in what we consider to be a green-collar career. I'm your host today, and this is my co-host, Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Ade. I'm Andrew. I'm the Green Careers Program Manager at Relay Education.
Today's guest in the green chair is Meredith Halfpenny. She is a wind site technician for Boralex. Welcome to the show, Meredith.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for being here with us.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the wind energy industry?
So I did my first work in renewables as a security guard, and I started that in 2009. I was an on-site security guard for a substation build and then went on at a wind farm, I should say, and then went on to two other wind farms after that. In that position, I was there while turbines are being put up, line work is being done, substations are being built. And so I was watching all of this go on around me, and I thought, this is so cool, and I really wanted to be a part of that aspect of these projects and not, just doing security. So I'm, talking 2009 or so, and I know things are a lot different now, but at that time I thought, as a woman, I don't really know if it's a good career choice or a respected career choice, and I just had a lot of doubts about what other people would think. What ended up happening is that I kind of started looking around and I came across Women in Renewable Energy, and they had a networking event coming up in Toronto. So I said, you know what, I'm involved in renewables in some way. So I signed up and I went to that event, and I met all these other women who held a wide variety of positions in renewables, from project managers to, material management, logistics, all kinds of different stuff. And every single woman that I met that night said, absolutely, you should do this. That was a big confidence booster for me. And I ended up signing up for another sort of networking event, but it was through CanWIA, which is the National Wind Organization in Canada. So representing all wind farm owners in our country, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. At that time, I was blogging a lot about wind energy and talking about wind in a positive way. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to make a business card. And it said that I was a renewable energy advocate, because I was advocating at the time. Through that and meeting people that way, I ended up being offered a position with the first wind company that I worked for.
It wasn't a quick transition then. It sounds like you were watching it over the span of a few years, and then you were interested by the industry even before you were working in it.
Yes. So I started, like I said, in the security on wind projects, and that was in 2009. And I didn't set foot on site in that regard until 2013. It was summer of 2013. Our family was very pro renewables. My dad had actually had a land lease for a decade. I mean, he had signed up in kind of the first round of when wind was being introduced in Ontario. Him and I would go to all kinds of municipal meetings to voice our support and try to be a positive voice, because especially at that point in wind development, mid 2000s, there's a lot of uncertainty because it's change and people are generally scared of change. So we thought, we should probably, be a champion for this because we think it's wonderful, right? Then it sort of culminated in, I really want to be in this industry and not just on the sidelines.
Let's go back to that networking event. You were handing out business cards and you got 3 job offers in renewable energy. So can you speak on what that position was, and then how did they prepare you for that job?
So my first position in renewables was as a quality assurance technician, and the kind of, I wouldn't say there was a lot of skill overlap. I had a good knowledge of wind turbine components because I had been taking care of them for some time, as a security guard and kind of looking at everything. So at least I had a very basic knowledge where I knew the base, the tower sections, the nacelle, the hub, the blades. I understood all components. But really the only sort of transferable skill from security was the observation aspect, the documentation aspect. So I handled a lot of record keeping, a lot of observing things that were happening, et cetera. So it was kind of transferable to quality, but completely different ballpark. I would say 99% of, my knowledge was acquired on the job. We did have formal training, of course, for safety aspect of the job. So we had formal training for tower rescue and just how to climb a tower properly, how to inspect your harness. Like all the safety stuff was very formal.
It sounds like you came in at the right time where companies were more willing to train you on the job.
Yeah, I think so. I think I kind of came in at the golden time in wind and renewables because it was an emerging industry. So, even in 2013, that was kind of the beginning of the large scale development. There had been, other wind projects, but we really got into the bigger projects. So the first project that I worked on was South Kent Wind, and it was, I believe, 127 turbines. So there was a lot going on, and they needed people. So there were experienced people in the industry, but not enough to keep up with the demand that was emerging at that point.
So I'm thinking about 2020 and how things have changed. Is there now an international standard for wind technician training? For example, could you inspect and repair any design of wind turbine the same way that a mechanic can work on any car?
There is a body called GWO, or Global Wind Organization, and they do cover training. So there's an international standard for GWO training. So a lot of courses that I have for climb training, high angle rescue, confined space rescue, things like that would be GWO certified. So I could go to France to a Boralex site and my GWO training will carry over. But as far as specific job of a wind technician, currently it's not part of an apprenticeship program, but I do have an apprenticeship right now as a 309A electrician. So you can, have other apprenticeships within the scope of a wind technician, but the wind technician job itself is kind of still, I guess, all over the map in a way, because yes, you can just get in with no background, or you could go to school, or you could come in as a different skilled trade, an electrician, a millwright, an iron worker, and come in and you have transferable skills. So it's not, I guess it hasn't really been fine tuned yet, but it seems like it's in that process. And I wouldn't be surprised if it does get to the point of an apprenticeship.
This is a really great option for people who want to retrain. Maybe the industry that they were in is less popular, it's perhaps dying, and you want some job security for the future. It seems like renewable energy is the place to go.
I think it's a really viable option for people who, like you said, are coming from other industries that are maybe dying down.
You do the O&M side, the operations and maintenance. But if you were to install or be part of that building team, the construction team, is it a different set of skills?
In construction, it's very dynamic. Every day is different. It's a whole different sort of set of stuff that's going on. I mean, you have turbine components being offloaded, you're setting bases, you're erecting towers, then you're going in and you're doing mechanical completion, you're inspecting, you're turning it over to the customer. So it's very, very different than what's happening once the wind farm is operating. So while there is a little bit of overlap, if you were going into service, you would be, fixing mechanical issues, but you're certainly not going to be, putting up towers or dealing with any of that sort of construction side. So a big difference too between construction and service or O&M is that during construction, the towers are not energized until they're handed over to the customer and they go on the grid. So there's kind of a big difference there in working on live equipment that's hooked up to the grid and working on stuff that's not, where you're just using a generator.
What other specialists would be working with you, like in the workplace?
So again, that does vary whether you're, in a construction phase or you're in the operation and maintenance phase. But so for Boralex here at Niagara, it's just myself, my manager, and my journeyman, who he's our electrical specialist. So I'm a wind site technician and he's the electrical site technician. Between the three of us, we kind of handle everything that happens here. We actually have the turbine manufacturer, which is Enercon. They do provide the service. So there's a whole other office of all the service technicians here. And so they handle the day-to-day maintenance on the turbine and making sure that they're running and they're fixing faults and all that stuff. Whereas here in our office, we're dealing with the grid side and down. So when the turbine connects to the grid, that becomes our problem, and the turbine itself is usually their problem. It's nice for us to have just a small group to work with. It's very nice, but it's different, depending on what aspect of renewables or what phase of wind that you're working in.
I wanted to ask you, what does it feel like to actually climb up a turbine?
So it never gets old is that's my thoughts on it. And I have climbed hundreds and hundreds of wind turbines, and once you get to the nacelle and you pop open a hatch and you take a look outside, it's just it's awe-inspiring every time, and I've never gotten sick of that. But I will say that physically climbing a wind turbine does something to be desired. It's very difficult. The ladder inside is vertical, so it's kind of funny, but I have had a lot of people who say like, "Oh, is it like a spiral staircase?" Because it's just a vertical ladder. Um, and of course, you're wearing about 30 pounds of safety gear. And then if you're carrying tools, it gets even more unenjoyable, of course, because it's a lot of weight to carry straight up. Thankfully, now that the wind farm is operating, we have elevators. And that is a big difference between the construction phase and the O&M phase. It's awesome, no matter what. It's awesome.
I was interested about the projects that Boralex is developing. What are some exciting projects that are happening in the future?
So Boralex has a lot of solar development in the works, which is very exciting. Of course, in Ontario, like I said, wind development has certainly slowed. So we're kind of looking elsewhere now as a company, and a lot of stuff is going to be coming in the States as far as solar. And Boralex is also involved not only in wind, solar, but we also have hydro facilities as well. And we have a little bit of biomass, but I think development right now is really focused on solar.
So you actually were the first woman wind technician at Boralex. And I also read that you were the first woman quality assurance technician at Siemens Gamesa. What was that experience like for you entering a male dominated space?
When I started in construction, I was actually very lucky because there were probably 5 to 10 other women on site and a few working in quality. So it was really nice to have, those women there to show me the ropes and to kind of help me integrate into what is a very male dominated field. I don't know that I could have succeeded if I hadn't had those women around me. I feel like it's a little more diverse in the construction world.
You're not the first person to tell us that. We were talking to someone, I think 2 weeks ago in Green Building, and she said the same thing because green construction is already alternative to the mainstream. You're gonna find more women. You're already with people that are thinking outside the box.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's kind of a newer thing, right? I think that renewables attracts very dynamic people. It's kind of a different mindset. And I mean, that's not to say that you're not going to run into, the odd person that isn't the greatest, but overall it's a very really awesome industry, very dynamic, and a lot of really great people in it. And I agree with that take that your previous guest had. That's been my experience as well.
I can't imagine though that every day is easy. What would be the most challenging aspect of being a wind site technician?
I think the most challenging aspect of being a wind site technician is you are 100 plus meters in the air and you don't really have the ability to say, you know what, I'm just going to run over, to the shop and grab what I forgot, right? And I think that can be very challenging and frustrating. And I will say that everybody in wind is a very creative problem solver for this reason, because nobody wants to climb twice, right? So it's like, okay, how are we going to make this work? We will make this work. There's a lot of work that you do that's in small, weird spaces. In the hub of a wind turbine, it's pretty cramped. Or if you're trying to get under, the generator, it's very small. You kind of have to be a contortionist. I'd say those are the two most challenging aspects of it. You're going to end up in a position where you need something that you do not have and you're going to have to figure it out.
Again, yeah, I can relate that to being a solar installer. We didn't want to go down a ladder that was only 2 stories tall too many times. So I can't imagine again going that all the way down just to grab one tool you forgot to, and then going all the way up again.
Yes, and when it's something like electrical tape, you just, oh my goodness. Very
So
upsetting.
I picture you always having a roll of duct tape with you, or something.
Something. Yes.
You have mentioned that the industry has changed a lot over the past few years, and I'm wondering, as a young person who's interested in the wind industry in general, is there any kind of post-secondary training in Ontario or in Canada?
Yeah, for sure. Both my manager and my journeyman, they both teach at Niagara College. And so my boss teaches the renewable technician program. My journeyman teaches the electrical program. So there's different avenues where you don't just have to say, I'm going to take the wind tech course. You can do that, or you could look at starting an apprenticeship in electrical, mill writing, any of those things.
Come at it from a few different angles.
Yeah, there's not one way to do it. There's definitely lots of ways, which is nice.
I read that your father was an important influence on your life and your environmental values. And you also shared with us that, he would take you to these community meetings and you were green energy advocate at a very young age. Can you share one lesson that he taught you that you've applied to your career or your life?
Oh my goodness, it's a really tough question. He is very much an innovator, and I think that I think that would be the lesson that I've taken from him in my career is to be innovative and to come into this space that maybe, didn't feel like, was this appropriate for me to be doing as a woman? Was this a good career choice? Is this a safe career choice? It's blue collar, and that wasn't always looked on the most favorably. So, he showed me it's fine. You can do that. If that's what you want to do, go do it. Be an innovator. Be the first one who does, you know, who becomes the QA with Siemens Gamesa. Become the first, woman at Boralex as a technician. And there's no reason that you can't do it. And you're gonna just figure it out.
It's so nice to have a supportive parent in your life.
So I feel very lucky to have such supportive parents, and everything I do, they've been cheerleading the whole way. And there's pictures of me on the wall. They're pretty awesome, and definitely came by the tenacity, kind of the innovative aspect, honestly, from them. Definitely.
And then my last question is there a book or film you'd like to recommend about renewable energy?
So this is kind of funny, but before I started in construction, there was a show on National Geographic, and it's called World's Toughest Fixes. And one of the World's Toughest Fixes episodes it's called Building a Giant Wind Turbine. And it's really raw, honest look at, putting up a wind turbine. And I remember seeing that, and my dad actually bought the DVD because we thought it was so cool. So we have it, at my parents' house. It's really, really cool, and it gives you kind of a rare insight as far as the day-to-day happenings when you're trying to work in this industry on the construction side. So that's the first thing that came to my mind, and it's awesome. Check it out if you have a chance.
Yeah, no, it is relevant. That sounds cool. Thank you. Thank you for joining us in the Green Chair. And where can we find you online?
So I really only use Instagram. I don't use Facebook, but if you wanted to follow me on Instagram, my handle is maple syrup sparky, and it's underscored. So it's maple underscore syrup underscore sparky. And I'll be happy to follow you back if you follow me there. And that's where I try to post all my electrical related happenings from day to day at work.
Thank you for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed learning about the different paths people take to working in the green economy.
Follow us on social media at Relay Education and check out our website relayeducation.com to learn more.